am a transgender opera singer, and sometimes this confuses people because I play girl roles and male roles. There's this adorable older British man in the chorus. He comes up to me after the show and he's telling me how back in the day, men would line up down the street with roses to give to the diva they most admired and how he would have done that for me. And he used the wrong pronouns for me, not because of any malice, but because he didn't know. My fiance kind of just casually slips in a he, him for me, and I see him kind of register it, but he doesn't say anything in that moment. You know, like those little flowers that you have in your yard that they look like daisies, but they're not daisies because they're small, but they're so cute and they make really good flower crowns? That's like, if those were a human, that would be this man. And the next day, this same man, he says, "May I ask you a delicate question?" I said, "Sure." "If it's all right, I ask, are you a girl or a boy?" I said, "I'm a boy." And this darling man, he says, "Oh, you're just an exceptionally pretty one. If I'd looked like you as a young man, I might have gotten a girlfriend earlier."
Oh, I'm sorry, are you sitting here?
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry, I'll leave.
Thanks.
You want me to stay?
No.
No one ever wants to sit next to me.
Me neither.
Well, okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we do have the same math class.
I don't think we do.
Mr. Robinson?
Nope.
I know, right? He has the weirdest hair.
I've never seen that man in my life.
Oh.
What's on your wrist?
What's on my wrist?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a friendship bracelet.
For who?
Who's the other friend?
Yeah.
I don't have one. I made two, but like, they're for my future friend. I know, pathetic.
That's pathetic.
Yeah, you got some silverware, but really, are you eating though?
I have never understood the hatred that some people have for 2020 alternative fashion because personally I think it was super significant. It was kind of like this huge cultural reset on what is cool and what isn't cool within fashion. Teenagers and young people were able to experiment with how they dressed without the same sort of societal pressures or ridicule they would have gotten out in the real world. And social media provided communities for people to learn about alternative fashion and get inspiration. Some of the most popular influencers at the time were also wearing alternative fashion and cosplaying. And yes, although most of these creators did adhere to the pre-established beauty standard, most of the time they weren't dressing in a mainstream way and they were experimenting with different types of music, different styles, and different makeup. And I just find it so crazy and kind of disappointing that people look back at 2020 with such negativity. I see so many videos of people laughing about how they used to do their makeup or how they used to dress, not realizing that that is part of developing your own style no matter how you dress now. Even now, I get comments from people laughing about how I do my makeup, referencing the 2020s as if I haven't been doing alternative fashion for over 10 years. Alternative fashion has always existed, but 2020 allowed a greater number of people to feel safe in experimenting and testing out different fashion. Looking back on 2020 with such negativity literally causes the same issue that 2020 fixed. This idea that dressing different or looking different is automatically cringe, despite the fact that what somebody considers cringe is completely personal and subjective. Like when I was a teen, anime was considered really cringy, and yet now it's on every streaming service all around the world. It's totally okay that 2020 was just a phase for some people, but alternative and kawaii fashion will continue to exist, and existed long before 2020.
I love the way it feels to be a hater. Something so sweet about thinking that I'm better. Just to wake up every morning, lay in bed, and somehow never ever rise to the occasion or even hold up under pressure. But we all know that it doesn't even matter if I waste away and no one thinks I'm clever. Just as long as I've got my ego and it tells me I'm superior, I could probably go a lifetime being barely mediocre. I still convince myself every time that I'm better than you.
Oprah donating her time and efforts to Maui. Look at her giving a pillow. It is so thoughtful. She has millions of dollars worth of property in Hawaii, and she's buying more acres of the tons of acres she has. This is all a game for her. Get some camera crews out, get some pillows out. She looks like such a good person. Girl, give some of the land. You have so much. Give even a little bit of it. No, you know what she does instead? She tries to buy more. She's trying to buy more right now.
Inclusive beauty is a myth, okay? It's something that's been invented by the powers that be, by beauty culture, by the beauty industry to co-opt and pretend to be changing the underlying power structure of beauty while keeping it actually the exact same and including people who are already closest to the Eurocentric beauty standard.
A lot of times people will bring up the consequences of a dropping birth rate. Like, two of the big ones are Social Security falls apart and senior citizens are kind of left to fend for themselves. But the crazy thing is that this stuff is already happening. Like, a lot of these things that this person is pointing out as like consequences of dropping birth rates are actually just consequences of neoliberalism. Like, it's not the falling birth rates that led to Social Security cratering. It's baby boomers ensuring that no generation after them would enjoy the same benefits. It's not the birth rates falling that's leading to infrastructure project cessation. It is just neoliberalism and its poor ability to do central planning. And I don't know how many times we have to say this, but having children is not a guarantee that you will have someone to care for you when you get older. There are so many more important issues that impact your day-to-day life than falling birth rates. This whole thing is just a dog whistle for great replacement theory.
You see that little bit of orange? Oh my goodness. Look who we have here. Smooth underside, ruffles on the cap. Smells apricot-y. It's a smooth chanterelle and she's edible. There's one, I bet you. Aha, there's more. God, this one is beautiful. Chanterelles also will be growing out of the ground and not out of rotted wood, like this little guy. And chanterelles also pull apart like string cheese. Oh my God, look at the baby. He's so small. No! I'm so sorry.
I'm here in Nigeria, and as you can see, I'm actually dead. Nigeria is an incredibly dangerous country. I read it on the website that if you come here, you are automatically going to die upon arrival.
Exactly, and as Africans, we're all dead. We're all living dead. Every African is a zombie. Personally, I died 3 years ago. And as for you?
Yeah, as soon as I got off the plane, I actually immediately died.
He just died, and I died. That's it. We are all living dead in Africa. We just live to fulfill the goals of our ancestors, but after it, yeah.
Seriously, don't come to Africa.
Yeah, don't come.
Conservatorships are evil. You heard me right. Conservatorships are evil. Not just for abled people, but disabled people as well. What happened to Michael or is beyond words. My own family has tried to do this to me. And this family member has not stopped trying. No matter what Michael or did. He was never gonna reap the rewards of his hard work. Conservatorships strip you of your personhood.
This video is of course being made for educational purposes. With that being said, trigger warning in this one, y'all. I will give you more context of this video in a second, but let's just play it.
Why are you so mad? Why are you so mad? I'm just asking my order's taking so long. What, do you work?
I don't give a fuck that you're recording me. I don't give a shit about that. Get the fuck away from me, bitch. The fuck is wrong with you?
What? I'm just
ugly ass your fucking attitude. These people is at work. They telling you constantly that they busy. What fucking do you not understand?
I just asked them what my order was.
Shit.
Why are you so mad? Are you okay?
Because I'm defending them. They fucking irritated you.
I just asked them where my order was, and then you're getting all mad.
There is literally a whole ass cop in the building, but instead of holding the peace, he's just holding his place in line.
I think it's funny. You're funny to me.
I don't give a fuck.
Are you on drugs and that pregnant baby?
Bitch, don't accuse me about being on motherfucking drugs. That's what I got a fucking baby.
Whoa, somebody's on drugs. You're a drug addict. Hey man, listen. Yeah, you're a drug. Yeah, you're a druggie.
Ladies, gentlemen, and thems, this individual is Alex Stein, and he works for Blaze Media. Blaze Media is, propaganda. And they pay Alex Stein to basically go out in public and just harass people of color. I did make a video about him maybe a couple weeks ago on my second account. He followed Brittany Griner into an airport and was just being extremely rude, asking her if she slept with Vladimir Putin so that she could come back to America. I mean, it was really ridiculous. I'm gonna say this as respectfully as I can for reasons, but Alex Stein is not funny, he has no talent, he's not entertaining, and I honestly do not understand how he is getting paid to do this. I don't see what benefit this brings to any network you would ever be a part of, but then again, this is a conservative platform. And if people like Candace Owens can get a job, and Matt Walsh, and Tucker Carlson, and Stu Peters, I mean, I guess it makes sense that Alex Stein can as well. Although I would argue he might actually be the least talented of all of them. He's maybe on the same level as like Stu Peters. It doesn't surprise me that Alex Stein would record himself doing this and then post to the social media for everybody to judge him. I'm sure his followers love it and think he's God's gift to humor, but all I see here is harassment. We live in such a strange, strange time.
Today I learned hot.
The fun for math or the correct kind hot, not hot. Hope that helps. You keep walking.
What would people be motivated to do if there wasn't capitalism?
Maybe band together as a team of volunteers to build a civic tech platform. At least that's what we did at thedownballot.org. I love that video so much because it challenges two key things. Number one, the idea that if people weren't coerced into selling their labor for money, they'd be bored or that they wouldn't have anything else to do. Number two, it challenges the notion that people have to be motivated to work, and that motivation has to come with a series of consequences. So don't labor, die on the streets. And that's what capitalism essentially does. But as we know, people volunteer for things all the time. People have side hobbies, passion projects that are not connected to their day job and aren't even profitable yet, but that bring them a deep sense of joy and fulfillment. And for me, that's been the Down Ballot. I started it at the tail end of 2020 when I didn't even know if I'd be able to get any software developers to help me with this project. It started with friends, and then I eventually started to source people from the internet who were willing to help on the project. After the midterm elections, though, we kind of had to take a break because A, I was extremely burned out, and B, I also had some travels and just some things going on in my life that made it a bit impossible to handle it on top of all my other obligations. And now we're back, and we're covering the 2024 election cycle. And for all those who are jaded with the voting process and electoral process, I want to encourage you with the fact that our focus is on down ballot elections, not in all states because we just don't have the capacity to cover all states yet, but in key states that'll be super important and that do truly impact communities. Our goal is to create a cheat sheet that lowers the barrier to entry for people to engage with their locally elected officials. And if you want to help us out by volunteering in any capacity, we would be so thrilled to have you. We are also actively working towards monetization so that we're not just having volunteers, but also able to give back to people that work with us. Even if you don't want to be a volunteer, just sharing our content will do wonders. I'm very excited to embark on this journey, and I hope to see you all along for the ride.
How does somebody who's not autistic respond on an autism assessment? When I decided that I was going to go in and build my competence in autism assessment, I first started out by seeking out and assessing non-autistic people because I wanted to get a baseline on a true negative of somebody who's not autistic, how they respond. Basically, I was thinking that if I went in and did autism assessments and pretty much was assessing autistic people because they want to be assessed and they're the ones who are seeking out autism assessment generally, I might not actually have a baseline for what is not autistic. So I ended up assessing a bunch of different non-autistic people, and I'm going to tell you about how non-autistic people respond on the assessment. There's a couple of characteristics I noticed, and again, this is a very small sample, it's not published or anything like that, this is just based on my clinical observations and experience. But I assessed a bunch of non-autistic people. And yeah, so there's some characteristics that I found that were common amongst all of them. So one characteristic I found is that they did not want to be autistic. So when I would kind of elaborate on autistic experiences and be like, you know, do you feel like this? Like, you know, does this make more sense to you to like, you know, understand yourself from this perspective, or do you do these things? They would sort of be like, they would find that weird in a way, or unnecessary, or kind of not really understand why, you know, someone would stim, someone would want to avoid sensory information, someone would want to hide away or recover from a social interaction. In fact, often, and it depends if someone's extroverted or introverted, but even the introverted ones still found that they needed and wanted social interaction like pretty much daily, and for like a big chunk of the day. So when I would talk about like, you know, escaping from social interactions or like having a break from social interactions, they didn't really know what I was talking about, and they just didn't see the need to do that. The other thing I found is that with interests, non-autistic people will kind of be a bit like nonchalant about them, nonchalant or something. Like they'll kind of be like, yeah, oh yeah, I like this thing and that, yeah, And sort of when you ask about, you know, do you spend a lot of time thinking about your interests, they're like, yeah, you know, it's not the intensity. And there's also no shame around the interest, and the interests tend to be quite like normative, you know, like sport or like gaming or like hanging out with people. Like social interaction is like a big interest often. And you know, when I sort of ask about like, do you think about your interests? Like, yeah, I think about people. Like I think about how I can like, you know, plan for this person, like what's going on in their life, and then I can like do well at like the roles that I'm doing. Like it's very much around that like social hierarchy sort of stuff. And that also gives them like a sense of genuine happiness and joy, and like that kind of what drives them in their life, rather than like non-people sort of interests.
Stop scrolling. Climate justice needs to be racial justice, and we need to talk about it. Modern day slavery in the Congo is powering the rechargeable battery economy. What does this mean? Smartphones, computers, electric vehicles, and so much more is powered by cobalt workers in the Congo who are working in slave-like conditions. Most of these workers are called artisanal workers, who are freelance African workers who do extremely dangerous jobs for only a few dollars a day. People are working in subhuman and degrading conditions, using shovels and pickaxes just to scrounge the urge for cobalt. Because of this, millions of trees are being cut down. The air around the mines are hazy with dust and grit, and the water supplies have been contaminated. And also, cobalt is toxic to breathe and touch, yet these people work with no protection. We cannot transition to a greener world whilst devaluing racialized people and the global south.
And then he's also saying, like, nobody respects him. And I'm like, bitch, you're 10 years old. Like, what do you mean nobody respects you? Like, what? Somebody please help me, because I'm so exhausted. I'm so overwhelmed.
Hello, I stumbled across a clip of this video on my For You page. So I went ahead and I actually found the whole video and I watched it. And there's actually a lot to unpack here. So I now would like to help with that. This mother is talking about her overly emotional child and then goes to ask for help. As someone who as a child was considered too emotional or too sensitive, I would like to add some insight into the situation and go through the video and then offer my advice. So let's get into it.
These kids are built different these days. And when I mean built different, I mean they're weak. Like, the amount of emotions these kids have, I don't know where it freaking comes from, okay? Especially the boys. Like, this is ridiculous.
Okay, interesting start. Anyway, she goes from that straight into the fact that the 2 out of 6 of her kids that were living with her are staying with their other parents now. So her 10-year-old gets to have his own room in a bigger space. And she goes to say that she's got him all these things for his room, decorations, even a TV. And then from there, she goes straight to the story time where they're sitting at a restaurant. And then here.
The guy decides he's going to just start crying in the middle of dinner. Nothing provokes anything, any sort of emotions. Like, then he's just crying, and I'm like, what's the matter? I'm like,
okay, so a couple things. The first thing is a child doesn't get to just decide to start crying. It's just something that happens. Kids have emotions. They don't get to decide when and where they cry. Also, something's telling me that there was definitely something that triggered this response out of him. Most of the times, kids, especially around his age, know well enough that it's not appropriate to cry necessarily out in public, especially out with your parents. So it's just my opinion or gut feeling that something probably triggered this. Let's move on.
him, he cries for like an hour, and he's literally just talking about how sad he is and how he has so much responsibility and nobody respects him and all sorts of crap like this. And I'm like, what is going on? And he was like, nothing feels good anymore. I have nothing to myself. Like, just kept going on and on. And so I was listening to him. I was hugging him. My husband tried talking to him, saying, you know, your mom's here and she is very soft. You know, she tries to comfort you. She tries to love on you. My job is to help teach you to be a man, you know. And so, Kai, there's a time and a place. And in the middle of dinner, when we're at a restaurant, you're not going to sit here and cry for an hour with everybody staring at us. Like, we can talk about this when we get home. We ended up talking to him for the whole entire dinner. I didn't even order food and didn't get to eat.
Once again, he did not choose to cry at the restaurant, let alone at the moment y'all were having dinner. And it's kind of crazy to expect a 10-year-old to be on the level of emotional regulation as an adult. He's 10. He's not going to know how to emotionally regulate. So kind of like expecting him to pull himself together in dinner is kind of like buying $1 lottery ticket and expecting to hit $500 on it. Also, you can't expect him just to know how to do this and to learn it quickly just because he is a boy and presumably is going to be a man. Just not how it works. So then she jumps into the most recent event in which a school counselor calls her and says, I have your child in the office crying. And then the mother is like, why? And then this is what follows.
He just came down here. It seemed like he just needed an emotional outlet. And he was saying to her all the same things, like, I have so much responsibility and I can't handle this. I'm only 10 years old. How does everyone expect me to control my emotions? And my dad's trying to, you know, teach me to become a man and all these different things. He's making it out like, which it sounds like she's saying is that all he does is he works. He has to do every single thing. And I'm like, what?
I feel like we're missing a lot of context because how did we get to this conclusion? How did you get that from that? Anyway.
Okay, so we know that capitalism sucks and we want to build a system that actually is based around taking care of each other and living well as human beings on this planet rather than on, you know, profit and unsustainable resource extraction. But how do we actually get from here to there? It's a really important question. My name is Hillary Agro. I'm an anthropologist and a community organizer, and I have a whole list of resources in my bio that answer this question in a much more thorough way, so please go check those out if you are interested. But just for now, for the next 30 seconds, there's two main things that we need to do. We need to fight, and also we need to build. We cannot just fight against capitalism without building things, and we cannot really properly build things unless we're also fighting against the systems that exist, which are going to fight back to try to continue to exist, because that is the system. It self-perpetuates. Whoops, this is going to be longer than 30 seconds. Stick with me. Just like a minute. So on the fighting end, there's really important things that you can do, such as unionizing. Unionizing your workplace is, as a worker, one of the most important things that you can do, because with collective unionized power, we can make demands that impact, you know, environmental stuff that your company might be doing. People will actually be living better because always unionized workers live better. There's also blockades and strikes and other forms of direct action, such as, you know, gently nudging oil and gas infrastructure into not being there anymore. There's a long history of this kind of thing being effective, and we can look to that history if we dig enough for it, because it tends to be buried by the capitalist, you know, mainstream media and educational complex. And then on the building side, and remember, all of this is interconnected and necessary, you have things like mutual aid, getting to know your neighbors and their needs, and making sure that you're caring for and providing for one another, and creating systems and networks so that you can provide for one another when, you know, the current systems are not doing so. This also allows people to be more easily able to strike and fight back against capital because, you know, you are not completely dependent on capital for meeting all your needs. You actually have, you know, other people around you who can support you. And there's also things like building alternative structures to what we have now, working on securing and building cooperatively owned housing, doing community gardens, all of these kind of things that are building systems outside of the capitalist system that aren't driven by profit. Yes, it's going to be complicated and messy, but there are so many things that we can do to get there. This is a super broad overview. Check out the resources in my bio for more information. And if you have any specific questions or more questions, I'm so happy to talk about this kind of stuff. It's hard to fit it into short videos, so just hit me with your questions and I'll do more.